Hi, welcome back. We are going to discuss the Kiyor in today's Mikdash moment. The Kiyor is the wash fountain. We've spoken about a lot about the Kelim so far. We've spoken about the Mizbeach HaKetoris, the incense altar, the Mizbeach HaKorbanos, the sacrificial altar. We've spoken about the menorah and the shulchan. And today we're going to speak about a very unique Keli. In fact, it's the last of the vessels to be described in the Torah. It is described in Parshas Kisisa, and that is the Kiyor, the wash fountain. Every morning before engaging in the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash, any kohen which would serve had to wash their hands and their feet, and they would do so from the Kiyor. The Kiyor was a copper wash fountain, and that wash fountain, which was a large basin, a receptacle of water, stood on a copper stand, and it was placed in the Azara, in the courtyard, between the Mizbeach and the Ulam, between the sacrificial altar and the building of the sanctuary itself. And as the Torah says, that before any kohen would come to serve on the Mizbeach or to offer ketoros or any korbanos, they were required to wash their hands and their feet. Initially, this Kiyor had two taps, two water spouts on it, but later in the times of the Second Temple, a kohen gadol by the name of Ben Kotin made a change, and he added an additional 10 taps to a total of 12. There are those who explain, in fact, there were 24, 12 on the bottom level for when the water level was lower, and 12 on the top level for when the water was higher. And the reason there were 12 was so that all of the kohanim who were involved in the korban tamid, in the daily sacrifice, could wash their hands and feet simultaneously. So the Kiyor was made of copper, as we said, but it was actually quite unique. The Torah tells us in Parshas Vayakel where this copper came from. And it says, Vayases HaKiyor, and he, Betzalel, who formed all of the kelim of the Mishkan, made the Kiyor nechoshes out of copper. Veskanoi nechoshes, and its stand was made of copper. Maros hatzoivos asher tzavu pesach oil moyed. Out of the maros hatzoivos, which were brought and gathered to the opening of the tent of meeting, the oil moyed. What is maros hatovos? Maros hatovos refers to mirrors, reflective mirrors. Mirrors back in biblical times were made by taking a piece of metal, any type of metal, in this case it was copper, and by polishing it and honing it, shining it, it would become reflective. Now these mirrors, the Medrash and Rashi in his commentary on the Torah tell us, were given by the Jewish women. The righteous women who left Mitzrayim gave their mirrors to the building of the Mishkan. So the Medrash tells us that these were unique. These mirrors have a story. What happened was, as part of Pharaoh's decrees when the Jewish people were in Mitzrayim in slavery, was that he wanted to control the population, reduce the population of the Jewish people, and therefore, in addition to the crushing labor that he would make the men do during the day, he forbade them from going home at night so that they would not be able to be together with their wives and thereby bring Jewish children into the world. However, what did the righteous women do? The righteous women would go and they would draw water at the river, at the Nile River, and Hashem caused that young fish, little fish, should come down into their jugs, into their pitchers, and they would then bring them home. They would either sell the fish or they would cook some of the fish, and then they would take wine and fish out to the fields. They would take hot water, which they would give to their husbands to drink, and they would bathe their husbands and heal their wounds. And then when they went, they took their mirrors with them, these copper shiny mirrors. They would hold up the mirrors in front of themselves together with their husbands, I guess like a biblical type of selfie. And they would say, look how beautiful I am. I am more beautiful than you. And they would speak words of love to arouse their husband's desire for them. And then they would actually engage in relations out in the field away from Pharaoh's taskmasters so that they would be able to continue to have Jewish children. And therefore, these mirrors actually represent the dedication of the Jewish women to their husbands, but not only that, their Mesiras Nefesh, their sacrifice to bring Jewish children into the world, even at a time of such harsh decrees and such difficult conditions. So the Medrash tells us that when these women brought these mirrors to the Mishkan, when Moshe called for donations, they brought their mirrors. They wanted to give them to be used in the construction of the Mishkan in its copper form. So it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was disgusted by them. Moshe Rabbeinu reproached them. He told them off. He said that it is highly inappropriate to bring these implements, things which are made for the Yetzer Hara, things which are made for physical appearance, things which are there to arouse lust. It is inappropriate to use these in building a Mishkan, which is supposed to be a spiritual place, a place for the dwelling place of the Shekhinah. So Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to accept these mirrors, these maros hatzovos. So the Medrash tells us that Hashem responded to Moshe and said, Moshe Rabbeinu, al elu atam mevazeh, you are denigrating these mirrors. You should know that these mirrors were used to establish the Jewish people in Mitzrayim. And that is another connection to the word Maras HaTzoivos. Tzoivos comes from the word Tzava. Tzava means a host. The Tzivos Hashem, the host, the legions of the Jewish people who left Egypt were born in the merit of these mirrors. So Hashem said to Moshe, you should take these mirrors and you should use them to build the Kiyor. You should use them to make the Kiyor, which would be used by the Kohanim at the start of the Avodah every day. Rashi quotes a slightly variant text, and he puts it in even stronger language, that Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to use the mirrors because they were made for the Yetzer Hara, and Hashem said, Kabel, you should accept them. You should take the mirrors from these Jewish women. Why? Ki elu chavivin alai min hakol. Because these are more precious to me than anything else, more than any other donation to the Mishkan, more than the precious gold and silver and gemstones. These mirrors are more precious because these were used by the Jewish women to continue to bring Jewish neshamas into the world. So, what does this actually represent? Moshe Rabbeinu looked at these mirrors and saw them as tools, as implements of the lusts of the Yetzer Hara, and therefore did not want to accept them. And Hashem says, not only should you accept them, but indeed these are the most precious offerings, precious contributions that could be made to the Mishkan. So I'd like to share the words of the Noam Elimelech of Lezhensk. The Noam Elimelech was one of the great early Hasidic masters, a contemporary of the Alter Rebbe, and in his commentary on Parshas Vayakel, he gives the following explanation. The word nechoshes, meaning copper, is related to the word nachash, nachash meaning a snake. And of course, the snake is the metaphor for the snake in Gan Eden, which represents evil, represents negativity, represents klippa, coarseness of physicality, which hides and conceals Hashem's presence. And therefore, Gashmius Olam Hazeh, the physicality of this world, is referred to or represented by the snake, and therefore that is embodied in the quality of nechoshes, of copper. And Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu that even these things which are connected to the coarse physicality of the world, to the Gashmius of Olam Hazeh, tzarich lahachnis hakol el hakodesh. All of them need to be brought into the realm of the holy as well. How do we do so? So when we engage in physicality, be it eating, drinking, recreation, exercise, and even our intimate relationships, all of that must be done with a machshava, with a thought that it is l'shem shamayim, that is there to facilitate and further our relationship with Hashem. That these two, when we eat, we are eating to have sustenance and nourishment so that we can serve Hashem. Our intimate relations are in order to build the Jewish people so that they will be able to serve Hashem, etc., etc. And with that machshava, we're able to connect, like the Rambam says, not only our eating and our drinking, but even our sleeping can become something which is holy, so that b'chol drachecha da'ehu, in all of our ways, we know Hashem, not just in our spiritual activities, but even in our mundane physical activities as well. And this is the idea of the Kiyor, this is the idea of the wash fountain, which was made of the nechoshes, made out of copper. So Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to accept them because copper in general, but more specifically, these mirrors were made for the Yetzer Hara. These areas of physicality, of carnal instinct, of material, of coarseness. Moshe Rabbeinu said that many people struggle and it can be a stumbling block and it's very difficult to actually elevate these things to become holy. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu saw them as being tainted and spiritually blemished, and he did not want to accept them for the Mishkan. So Hashem responded that on the contrary, that these mirrors in particular actually attest to the opposite. They attest to the fact that the Jewish women used them in the service of Hashem. Of course, they used it to beautify themselves for their husbands, so that their husbands would have an attraction towards them. But not only that, they actually used it to make sure that they would not attract the attention of anyone other than their husband. And through doing this, they were able to continue to build the Jewish people, even Mitzrayim, even under such circumstances. And therefore, they were indeed used in a positive, holy way. And therefore, they should be brought into the Kodesh. Therefore, they should be used in the Mishkan. And that's why Hashem said, Chavivin alai min hakol, these are more precious to me than anything else. So what's the lesson for us? Hashem says, build for me a mikdash and I will dwell within them. That is our own personal lives. Each one of us has to make our lives, our homes, and our world into a dwelling place for Hashem. So we might think that that is only with the inherently holy parts of our lives, our study of Torah, our davening, our fulfillment of mitzvahs. And when it comes to days like Shabbos and Yom Tov, these are part and parcel of building a Mishkan in our lives. But when it comes to our mundane physicality, our involvements in this world, our businesses, our eating and drinking, our sleeping, our recreation, our mundane activities, and our relationships, these are our own personal space. These are outside of that Mishkan of our lives. And the answer is no. Not only like the Melech says, we have to bring everything El HaKodesh. Every part of our life must be dedicated to the service of Hashem. But in fact, as Hashem told Moshe, Chavivin alay min hakol, in fact, that these are more precious than anything else. Because when those things which are innately holy are dedicated to the service of Hashem, there is no chidush over there. There's nothing new, there's nothing novel. These are inherently holy things. But when we take something like nechoshes, when we take something that is in the territory of the nachash, of the Yetzer Hara, the physicality of the world, and we transform that and elevate it and use that in the service of Hashem, then Hashem says, Chavivin alay min hakol, that is more precious to me than anything else. And with that, we have the idea of the Kiyor, because the Kiyor is, of course, the idea of washing, the idea of cleansing, that we take coarse physicality, which may be impure, may be connected to the Yetzer Hara. However, when we wash it, when we refine it, when we rectify and elevate it, then it becomes part and parcel of the Mishkan, and indeed it becomes that crowning pinnacle of Chavivin alay min hakol, just like the mirrors of the Jewish women, the righteous Jewish women who left Mitzrayim. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow we are going to continue this discussion, and we are going to explain, according to the teachings of Kabbalah and Hasidus, what is the uniqueness of a mirror. So please join us. Stay tuned.